Okay, so now it's going to even get worse. So Tony and I were talking about today and what we wanted today to be, and first and foremost, we wanted today to be just a celebration. We told the kids in the very beginning of this whole thing that we would get through it, and we didn't promise when or how or what would happen in between, but we would get through it. And when we got through it, we would have a big party to celebrate. And I can't even tell you how many nights Joey and Noah would talk about this party. Well, what are we going to have? What are we going to do? Where's it going to be? You know, who's going to come? And we talked a lot about the Geers Army, and you guys know that because you followed us. And so we talk about Geers Army Strong, and they loved that analogy to be able to, you know, the Army is standing strong, and whatever we need, we're going to do. So we talked about this party, and so it's very symbolic to a lot of things. It's just celebrating family. It's a time for the kids to let loose and have fun, and for us to be together and be appreciative for everything that you guys have provided and been there for us. So anyway, that's what this party is. But also, we wanted to take a moment, and I know it's going to be actually a few moments, but we're going to kind of just tell you our story. A lot of you know it, but maybe you haven't heard it from beginning to end. And we want to be a voice, because a lot of people are maybe afraid in the situation, and they're not as public as we have been, and we chose early on to be public, which is risky because, you know, it could have gone either way, and people, you know, we were being accused of what I think is the worst. You couldn't accuse me of anything worse than child abuse. So, but it was wrong, and there were some things that happened that were wrong along the way. And I want to be clear that we don't think, you know, we're not anti-CPS or anti-state or any of that, but what we are is for changing the process. There's a process that needs to be changed, and we need as many helpers, as many Army people that are into that to change the process. But we do acknowledge that we need a system to protect children from child abuse. It does happen. So I just want to be clear that, you know, we're not going to join the anti-CPS bandwagon and, you know, they suck and the world's awful. That's not who we are. Who we are is what can we do to fix it? How can we help to fix it? And that's what we want a little bit of today to be about as well. So I'm just going to read you, and I'm sure I'm going to cry, but I'm going to read you a little bit of our story. Hopefully it's not boring to you. And then sort of where we'd like to go from here. Okay. So you guys know I'm a writer, right? I like to write. If you don't know that about me, you're going to. Okay. When I think about this last year, I'm blown away by what has transpired to our family. It started with the amazing and surprising news that we were expecting a fourth baby. And then we were blown away to learn it was baby 4 and 5. Although this was a lot to process, we knew God had a plan and that our family was meant to be large. There was no question whether we had enough love to give. We had that covered. We have lived on faith all 16 years of our amazing marriage. 16 years last week. Pretty cool, huh? And on that note, I will tell you, my husband is so amazing. I just have to say that too. Like, this poor guy, not only did he in his life go in shambles like mine, but then he had to deal with me at the end of everything too, and try and be strong through that whole thing, and he was amazing at that. So anyway, those of you who have had the pleasure of seeing me regularly during my 7 months of glorious pregnancy, right? Rachel's not even here, and she was like the biggest person who had to deal with me. Know that it was not the easiest. I was sick the entire time on multiple levels, but kept going like the Energizer bunny that I am. We also had the pleasure of moving to Novi in the middle of this time, and I was concerned the entire pregnancy about my inability to eat, risk of preterm labor, and in the back of my mind, I always had Wyatt in the struggles that we had with his health. Every doctor telling us the chances were slim that we would have another child with heavy facial microsomia. During this time, Noah was having a lot of anxiety about the babies being sick, like Wyatt or mom being sick and needing to be in the hospital for a long time. Tony and I needed to seek help for him, and in this, we became refocused on spending individual and quality time with the 3 boys on a regular basis. We made time with them a priority, and in turn realized what amazing and different boys we were blessed to have. We also realized, despite a few mistakes here and there, we were amazing parents, not individually, but together. On November 8, 2014, we decided to have our Christmas tree and house decorating party earlier than usual, as I had a feeling the babies would be arriving early, although not that day. On this very day, contractions started and didn't stop getting closer. And that evening, we put the boys to bed and explained that the babies may be arriving sooner rather than later. After 24 hours of trying unsuccessfully to stop labor, I went in for a cesarean section to deliver Joshua and Thomas 7 weeks early. Despite their prematurity and low birth weights, they were doing amazing. We knew right away Joshua had some similar facial characteristics of Wyatt, and it was confirmed 3 days later. We never skipped a beat and feared nothing other than how Noah would take the news. After a month in the hospital, the boys came home. Joshua was having some abnormal blood work, noted to have small kidneys, and within a week of discharge, his pediatrician became concerned that his metopic, and I don't know if I say that right, but his metopic bone may have fused prematurely. A week later, it was confirmed that he had craniosynostosis, and I know I'm not saying that right, but that's the way I go with it. Within a day of this news and researching this condition and the surgery needed, we knew there had to be other options. And Tony found a non-invasive neurosurgery option at our home away from home in Cincinnati Children's Hospital. In a week's time, we drove to Ohio and met this amazing surgeon who knew that not only was the surgery, and we knew not only was the surgery going to be easier, it had more success and recovery much quicker. This was the best place for our baby. We made arrangements for surgery the following week. The day before we were scheduled to leave, Joshua developed a horrible case of RSV. His breathing was incredibly labored, getting worse by the minute, and he ended up having to be transported to U of M by ambulance. He spent 8 days in the hospital. I need a Kleenex. Can somebody find it? You're awesome, thank you. Sorry. Okay. He spent 8 days in the hospital recovering, and his surgery was canceled. Thomas also developed RSV and was able to recover at home. We then had to wait 5 weeks for Joshua to fully recover before the surgery could be rescheduled, which also put us at his maximum age he could to have this non-invasive procedure. We kept the kids in a bubble as much as we could while we waited. On March 2nd, surgery was scheduled, and despite some abnormal labs, they were able to proceed and succeed. There's nothing like watching an infant no bigger than your hand go in for brain surgery. I was so sick that morning. I wasn't sure if it was nerves or the flu, or it could have been either, for that matter. The following evening, Joshua was discharged, and we stayed the night at Ronald McDonald House to ensure he recovered well before traveling home to Michigan. That night, Joshua started to vomit a bit, and after debating do we or don't we decided to take him to the ER to be sure all was well before we traveled home. I was reluctant to take him to the ER after brain surgery for risk of infections, germs, etc. Plus, I was pretty confident I must have had the virus the day before. We wanted to be safe rather than sorry, so we took him to the ER. After deciding to do an x-ray of Joshua's abdomen to be sure his throwing up was viral, the doctor came in the room and we knew right away something wasn't right. We knew this look as we have experienced it many times before. We basically had to beg her to spit it out, but never in a million years would I expect what she said. It appears Joshua has multiple rib fractures that could only most likely be caused by abuse. We have contacted social work, and we would like to ask you some questions, get some x-rays, a CAT scan, and some blood work. Everything was a blur. That day went on, and we found out that Joshua only had one fracture, and that they had seen shadows, and that his blood work was a little concerning, so they needed to call hematology. It appeared that we would be discharged as they were not concerned any longer, until at the last moment they came back in and said, due to mandating reporting, they had to contact CPS in Michigan, and they would follow up with us the next day. That night, we laid at the Ronald McDonald House in each other's arms and cried and thought, what in the world's happening? What would happen? Do we need an attorney? What kind of attorney? What could have happened? How did he get hurt? In the end, we knew the truth would prevail. The next day, we arrived home and were greeted by CPS and asked to take all children, including Thomas, to U of M to be checked out. We, of course, complied, trying to keep the kids calm and not concerned. All kids checked out, and Thomas went through a skeletal survey and came back all good. The ER doctor told me to keep doing what we were doing, and I laughed and said, could I record that? I really wish I would have. We thought, well, this sucks, but they're doing what they need to do. This is what I do, so I understand mandated reporting. Better be safe than sorry. As hard as it was, I got it. We were on a voluntary safety plan where my sister, brother-in-law, or mom needed to be with us at all times. This was supposed to last 3 days, and time kept going by and going by. We asked what the holdup was, and I know it's very upsetting, Joshua, I agree. Okay, so we asked what the holdup was, and were told that they needed to get another opinion. We thought that was strange, but it must be procedure. They couldn't get the x-rays from Cincinnati, so Tony took a day off work and drove down round trip to get the x-ray discs. We handed it over, and 5 days later, my doorbell rang at 5:40 p.m., and I looked out the side to see 4 police officers and 2 CPS workers who explained they were removing the children from our care, as this doctor that never met our kids says Thomas has 5 rib fractures, most likely caused by abuse. Imagine this moment for a second. I have 2 boys, ages 9 and 8, running into the room to hide. A 3-year-old asking what is wrong, what's going on. My world is crashing, and I'm trying to calm and reassure them. Call my husband to bring the babies home from the sitters. Call my sister to tell her the babies are coming to her house. Pack bags for everyone. Figure out cars and car seats. All while shaking uncontrollably, being told that I need to go to court the next day at 1 p.m. as the state is filing a petition to terminate our parental rights. Just writing this brings a stress no parent should ever experience, and most likely never will. I will forever have this image engraved, but most importantly, Joey and Noah will never forget. Sorry. As I buckled my bigger boys into a stranger's car, I stopped and prayed with them. I told them Mom and Dad would do everything we needed to get our family back together. The truth would prevail, God would protect us, and we would have an army of friends and family to help us reunite. That's you guys. I told them to be strong because I know they are, and to always be respectful because that's how we raised you. With those words, I kissed my boys, said goodbye, and walked in my house and fell to my knees and cried a cry I have never cried and hope to never cry again. I then spent the next 12 hours trying to find an attorney and prepare for court the next day at 1 p.m. I found Sonia. Sonia's amazing, you guys. If you need an attorney, she put up with me. I talked to a lot of people, and I will tell you, when I hung up the phone with her, which was at like 10 a.m., when we needed to be at court at 1 o'clock, and when I hung up with her at 10 a.m., it was the first attorney I hung up with and said, she gets it, like she actually cares, this is who we're going to go with, and she does care. She's awesome. Okay, all right. The months that followed were filled with such emotional turmoil. My kids were separated, babies with grandma and bigs with Aunt Michelle and Uncle Doug. We moved out of our house to allow the big kids to have as much normal as they could. I spent every moment I had trying to figure out how to reassure the kids, spend as much time as I could with them, and to learn as much as I could about the law and medicine. I'm pretty sure I could be a doctor and a lawyer, maybe. I knew we never hurt our kids, as they were the whole reason for our being. So that was wrong. And I got to tell you, too, so many people ask us, did we ever even question each other? And we never did. We knew we didn't hurt our kids. So we never even had to have that conversation. We knew right away something else was wrong. Anyway. Okay. I would spend my mornings with the babies, go to work for a few hours in the afternoon, be home for the big kids when they got out of school, say goodnight to the bigs, go and say goodnight to the babies, and then drive out to White Lake. I would then spend hours at night reading every article I could find, talking to other families around the world, actually, and contacting doctors to ask for help. I would then compile packets of medical information and x-ray discs and ship them off to experts around the United States in hopes they would be able to find out what was going on with my babies. Then I would get up the next day and do it all over again. For 2.5 months, I did not watch one television show, listen to any music outside of my 2 favorite songs, which I'm sure Tony does not want to hear ever again. It Is Well and Holy Spirit, love those songs. Anyways, my focus was solely on keeping my kids as content as I could and finding an explanation for the fractures. I would have these moments of complete devastation and outright panic in the reality of what was happening. I remember being in CVS one day and the reality of the state of Michigan wanting to terminate my parental rights hit me. I became paralyzed and sobbed uncontrollably, thinking I was going to collapse and trying to figure out who I could call to come get me. This on top of the countless nights I cried myself to sleep in Tony's arms. Those of you who know us know that our whole lives revolve around our kids. Everything we do is for them. How this could be happening to us was beyond my comprehension. I had a few turning points in this process that I wanted to share. The first was seeing the turnout in the courtroom less than 20 hours after our kids were removed. I saw people I hadn't seen in years, people taking time out of their lives to show support in ours. The love and support we felt that day was amazing and gave us the fighting drive we needed. Secondly, we were instantly set with an amazing financial burden, needing not just one but 2 attorneys, doctors, and every time we felt like there was no way we could come up with this money, someone or many would offer help, send money, offer fundraising ideas, etc. Third were the constant words of encouragement, whether it was emails, cards, texts, phone calls, letters, and gifts for the kids, hugs, or unspoken care from people I saw daily. It was there and kept us going. Lastly was faith. No matter how horrible this seemed, and no matter how much it didn't make sense, and I questioned what was happening, we always had faith that God had it. I had a hard time praying, but a few times I was specific and felt compelled to not just pray, but to drop to my knees in prayers. And each time, God came through. I left my kids every day and told them that God knew the truth, and in His time, He would make it right. I didn't know what that time would be, but I believed the truth would prevail and we would be reunited. I would stand firm in this statement every night, but I would walk out that door and ask Tony, what if we were wrong? What if we're promising this and it doesn't happen? Regardless of this, I believed. I had to. That's all I had. Faith, family, and friends. We got to stare at that every day at Grandpa Ken's and Therese's house, where we were gracious enough to let us live with them. I'm sure you miss us at night, right? We would not have made it through these horrific events without these 3 things. I cannot express in words how much these 3 things meant to us. I would say daily that I didn't know how people would get through this without those 3 things. I felt so weak, but these things kept me strong. To watch my 9-year-old experience a full-out panic attack, and my 8-year-old hold me so tight I couldn't breathe, begging me to stay the night, and my 4-year-old asking me nightly why I couldn't stay with him because this was our house. Then to have 2 breastfeeding babies who could only see their dad for like an hour a day and mom not much more than that at a crucial time of bonding. There is nothing more heartbreaking. Despite these awful realities, we chose every night to focus on our amazing family taking care of our precious cargo. The ability to keep them out of foster care, even though they technically were considered in foster care, stay in or close to home, and see us daily along with supportive employers that stuck with us in our time of complete chaos and change. Those of you who had to work with me, I'm sorry. Many nights, Joe would ask me about our Army, and we would plan the celebration party where we would celebrate family. Here we are today, and I couldn't be happier to share this with him and with all of you. We have won this battle, but our war is not over, and we hope many of you will want to assist and look at the bigger picture with us. We always understood the need to protect the children in an investigation and to investigate. In fact, we tried to assist in the process as much as we could. There are a few things that I was not aware of until now, and these are the things that need to change. In order for change, we need people, and people to demand change. The first problem is the lack of investigation. Once a doctor who never met us or our kids said there was abuse, the investigation was over. Nobody took the time to get to know our kids, Tony, myself, my pregnancy, details of the twins' medical history. In fact, our pediatrician tried to contact them and offer additional information about the twins' vitamin D level, and they simply said, sorry, it's in the court's hands. When I would talk to doctors that wanted to help, they would spend 10 minutes with me on the phone and be in disbelief that our kids were removed. Between my health history and the twins' prematurity and health problems, they said we were the perfect storm for fragile bones. My response was always the same. I don't think they know because nobody took the time to ask or find out. Problem number 2 is that child abuse doctors are trained and paid to find child abuse. They are supposed to rule out differential diagnoses such as metabolic bone disease, which Josh's labs clearly indicated, and Thomas's labs weren't even completed until 3 weeks after the kids were removed. One of the doctors claiming we abused our kids didn't even have the lab work and never met the twins or myself. He knew nothing about the type of pregnancy I had or their history. This is extremely difficult with infants. X-rays are extremely difficult with infants. There is no data on unexplained fractures in infants, as infants are not routinely X-rayed. The question becomes, what if we randomly X-rayed infants on a regular basis? Many doctors concur we would be seeing a lot of unexplained fractures. We just don't know how easy it is to fracture because we don't X-ray. It is a lie to say that these babies experience pain and discomfort. I can assure you mine did not. Had it not been for Joshua's vomiting and us being cautious, we would have never discovered these fractures. I think about that often, but it's okay. Moving on. The lack of rights for parents in family court. In this system where you are charged in family court of child abuse, it is up to you to prove your innocence. It's the craziest thing, and it's so true, you guys. They can remove your kids based on hearsay, and you are guilty until proven innocent. So many people don't have the knowledge or resources to accomplish this fight, and this is not right. I've watched many TV shows, haven't we all, where people are falsely accused, and I always thought how awful that would be. Let me tell you, there is nothing worse than being accused of abusing the kids that you would lay your life down for. Sadly, people are convicted criminally of this crime with no evidence other than a child abuse pediatrician claiming child abuse, and many other families lose their children for months or years as they try to prove their innocence. How does a system set up to protect the children not take into consideration the fact that what they are doing potentially causes an irreversible emotional damage that nothing could repair? There is something wrong with a system that believes that it is acceptable to destroy good families and search for abusive families.
Amen.
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 That was my favorite statement, so I'm glad you liked that. In fact, we want to help. What is necessary? Was it necessary to show up at my house with 4 police officers unannounced and traumatize my kids forever? We need to write legislators, governors, senators, and on a state, not only on a state level, but on a national level. We need to demand that measures are in place to complete a thorough investigation. Before we look at removal, we need to look at removal as a final step in extreme danger. We need to offer financial reward. Here's the key. I'm sorry, I misread this, but this is another thing I'm very strong about. We need to not offer financial rewards to agencies for removing children. And child abuse doctors should not be paid by hospitals and DHS. This is an extreme conflict of interest. We should demand that there be more required. There should be more required outside of hearsay, and these families that are wronged deserve an apology or at least look me in my eyes. We acknowledge CPS workers have a difficult job, and they have a lot of responsibility. This is an unbelievable weight on their shoulders. But why do we jump? Why can't we look at the whole picture? Why is it that what they do more important than what we do as a family or as parents? We're going to provide, I have not done this yet, but I'm going to provide a list of legislators and senators, and we want the Geers family army to be part of change. I can't imagine we have gone through what we did for nothing. I won't accept that. Early on, Tony said they arrested the wrong family, and they did. We're not done, and again, I don't want this to be a bashing of CPS or the state. That's not what this is about. It is about change, and there are things that we need to look at. And so I tell you this, you guys, I talk to daily, and that's not an exaggeration, a new family every day reaches out to me who is going through something similar to this. In fact, we were expecting a family here today. Oh, are you here? Yay! Hello! Hi. Are you Tiffany?
Yes, I am.
This is Tiffany. Hi. We are being sought out from people all over who are experiencing similar situations. It's not right. You're guilty until you prove yourself innocent. And sadly, people don't have the time or resources to prove themselves innocent. And they'll go, you guys, this will be the only time this will come out of my mouth. But we were lucky that this ended the way it ended for us. It does not end like this for a lot of people. People will go months or years without their kids. I cannot imagine. Today I should be preparing for a trial. That's insane to me. But people have to do that. And sometimes they win and sometimes they lose. And I'm not saying it's all wrong, but I am saying that sometimes it is. And we need to look at that and we need to demand some changes in this system. I lost my train of thought because I went off. But so basically, please help us make right this horrible wrong. We're not done. There's gonna be things coming up. We want you guys to stay on our page. If you're not on our page, go to Reunite the Gears family. Although I think we should, change that or something because we're reunited.
Get to Reunited Gears.
Yes, there you go. But I still want it to be there because I want us to be aware and to help other people that are going through similar situations. I don't want this to be over. I mean, as grateful as I am that I have my kids back and that part of this fight is over, there's still a much bigger fight to go. And I hope everybody will help with that. And I hope I didn't bore you with my story, but I just think it's important that people understand what happens, what did happen in our case, and to start to know some of the things that we can do different to change it. With that, you guys, there's too many people to thank because you guys are all awesome in different ways. But I'm just incredibly grateful for everybody, and let's eat cake.